Are you serious? Are you serious? Salva Kiir.
Salva Kiir.
Yeah, let's say his name again.
Salva Kiir.
Now, he's the president of South Sudan. And there's something that happened, folks. It's unbelievable that the media has not released this. This happened July the 7th. But we have just got our hands on this information. And I'm going to shock you with what happened to some 7 U.S. diplomats in South Sudan by the military, personal military army of President Kiir there in the South Sudan. On the night of July 7th, 7 American diplomats there in South Sudan left a farewell dinner early and were headed back to the U.S. Embassy, anxious to avoid the city's deepening chaos when their 2-car convoy was ambushed by South Sudan Presidential Guard of Salva Kiir. Now, South Sudan troops fired between 50 and 100 rounds at these 2 armored SUVs as soon as they passed the presidential palace. No one on either vehicle, which included James Dugan, who's the 2nd highest ranking U.S. official in the South Sudan, none of them were hurt or killed in this attack, but it wasn't for the lack of trying. 3 separate clusters ambushed of South Sudan soldiers unloaded on the armored diplomats' vehicles. They were unarmed, all of them. Eventually, a U.S. Marine rapid response team from the embassy had to fetch 3 of the waylaid Americans and their South Sudan driver and get them back to the embassy for safety. The U.S. State Department officials provided foreign policy with conflicting accounts of whether the department had conducted a formal investigation into the incident, with one official saying it had, and another saying it had carried out some form of an investigation, but both officials said they have demanded South Sudan to carry out its own investigation and hold these responsible to account. Problem is, this wasn't just a handful of rogue soldiers trying to assassinate some Americans. This was the Presidential Guard. 3 bunches of them waiting. This was a planned assassination attempt of 7 U.S. diplomats, period. Now, they were truly targeting the U.S. diplomats, although it's still not clear, according to Keeler's people, whether or not they knew who they were shooting at. Of course they did, folks. The vehicles have the U.S. flag, official State Department license plates identified on the vehicles. I mean, they know whose car. They knew when they were coming by. They were ambushed. Question is why? Question is why. And the other question is, why didn't President Obama or John Kerry from the State Department, why didn't anybody acknowledge that there was an assassination attempt of 7 high-ranking U.S. diplomats in South Sudan? Why would you not let people know what happened? Now, here's what they did do over the weekend. The United States sent Samantha Power, who's the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and she led a UN Security Council tour to South Sudan this weekend, which highlighted the attacks against the United Nations peacekeepers and civilians, including American aid workers, as well as the need for accountability for human rights violations. Let me tell you what's been going on. The president of South Sudan has been systematically, ethnically cleansing his opposition to try to secure his position in his country. And he knew the UN had been trying to help protect these people. And he also knew the American diplomats were in the way as well. And he wanted to send a clear message to everyone, to stay out of South Sudan. He's going to do it his way. And now Samantha Power made no mention of the incident in her public remarks while she was there, but in a face-to-face meeting over the past weekend with the president, Keeler, Ambassador Power very forcefully raised the threat to U.S. citizens and specific incident in which the U.S. diplomatic vehicles have been fired upon by the government military personnel, expressing her grave concern. There is no justification for such an incident. The world has long been a dangerous place for U.S. diplomats. The deadly assault on U.S. diplomatic compound in Benghazi in Libya back in 2012 cost 4 Americans their lives, despite them pleading for more security and more protection. Christopher Stevens and 3 others lost their lives in Benghazi. Hillary Rodham Clinton, of course, has come under tremendous scrutiny during his presidential campaign and was even had to sit through an 11-hour interrogation by the Congress in the hearings. It's getting ugly out there, folks. So this story needed to be out there. This story does not need to be buried, but I have located. I want to thank the folks that sent it to me. This was coming from the foreign press, and we're not going to get it. You're not going to see it tonight. This story is not going to be on ABC News, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. It's just not going to be there. But we do get this news out of foreign journalists. We're living in the last days. There's a beast rising. There's a beast rising. A new world order. Give your life to Jesus Christ before it's too late. Don't be left behind.